we periodically get, no, I mean every day actually, we get a lot of emails from people who are either watching the stream or watching videos, and this gentleman, Nikhil, wait, you can tell us how to pronounce your name. Anyway, reached out with a question, and anyway, can you? Yeah, we can hear you now, I think.
Good. So my name is Nikhil, and my question was related to the lecture.
Wait, hang on, before we do that. So you're from India, but
Yes.
you live in Germany?
Right.
Are you going to school, or do you live there permanently, or?
I did my master's and now I'm working here.
Cool. Where in Germany?
Aachen.
Where at?
It's near Cologne or Frankfurt.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Wait, hang
It's
on
near
1
Frankfurt.
second. Yeah, I just got to put my earpiece in, and then I can hear you.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, awesome, man. Well, listen, nice to meet you. So you emailed me. Say what the question was.
So the question was that if you look at the Indian movies, most of them are about love marriages. The songs are also about love marriages, but if we look at the Indian society, most of the people opt for arranged marriages. So how can one explain this paradox?
So the question is, so hang on, listen up. So this goes back to the class that we called Arranging Love. And we were talking about arranged marriage, and you said, listen, like Hollywood puts out about 500 films a year. Bollywood, by the way, in Bollywood, it's called Bollywood because it was the film industry in India that started in Bombay, which we now call Mumbai. But Bollywood puts out about 1,200 films a year, and the vast majority of what you're saying of Bollywood films are based on love marriage, and whereas the high percentage of Indian marriages are arranged. So, like, how do you make sense of that? Do you have an answer to it? Like, do you have a quick answer?
I don't know. I'm searching for it.
Okay, all right. Here's my thought on it, man. I have purposely not thought about it until right now. So here's what I would say. I think there are probably a couple things going on. One is that Bollywood comes out of an industry of people who are more the moneyed class, and as you go up in socioeconomic class, you're more likely to either, I think, have marriages that are more based on love, or at least the love idea is woven into relationships more so than people in the lower classes. Okay, I think that's my first attempt at it. I think upper classes also have arranged marriages, but it's a different type of arrangement. It's more an agreement than an arrangement in some kind of way, right? So that's my first take. My second take is, I don't think you see arranged marriages depicted in film anywhere, because it's really difficult to portray arrangements unless you're directly talking about arrangements. But if you're talking about a couple, like the romance or the thing that hooks people in the storyline, which is the romance piece, it's really difficult to show that on the screen. And so it's not surprising that most Bollywood films would choose to show the romance relationships, because it's really easy to show on the screen, and you can just tell a better story. So okay. I think there's a lot of romance with arranged marriages, and I think there's a lot of really interesting, it's just sensuality with arranged marriages, but it's very difficult to portray that in film. That's my answer to you, man. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I will think about it more. Maybe I will have more questions after that.
Dude, you rocked, man. All right. Hey,
thanks.
Nikhil, thanks for asking the question. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching the video. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wait, by the way, how long have you been watching Social 19?
3 months now.
Yeah,
I came across it recently.
Dude, awesome, man. All right, we'll see you. Thanks, bro. All right. Dude, that's cool, man. All right. You have to clap. I'll let him know you clap for him. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that cool? Like, that's such a cool question. Like, as soon as he asked it, I thought to myself, okay, hang on, man. That's really fascinating. I feel really good about today's class. Today's class is going to very much be an exploration. You can go to the next slide, Leah. And I'm calling it Protecting the Children. And I'll explain why I'm calling it this, but I kind of want to, well, first off, can you go to the next slide? Just in recognition of the shooting, yet another shooting that happened yesterday in Tennessee. And, you know, I was reading the number one cause of death in children in the United States is gun violence. And that bullet right there, that's an X-ray. I pulled this off of Reddit. That's an X-ray of a child with a bullet lodged in their chest. And you know, it's not a book about two gay penguins that raise a baby penguin. A book that's getting pulled from school libraries, right? It's not a book about race relations, books that are getting pulled from school libraries. That's not a book that we're doing something about. Right? We're banning books, but we're not banning bullets. And I'm not of the world to say, like, of the mind to say, I think I know what the answer is or what we should do, because I don't. But it's pretty astounding that that's the number one cause of death of children under the age of 18. And if you go to the next slide, I mean, this is where we are here, right? And, you know, this is the mortality rates, firearm mortality rates for every 100 children from 1 to 19 years. And you just kind of look at where the U.S. is compared to other comparable countries. I mean, we're off the scale. It's still only 5.6 per 100,000. So if you fill up Beaver Stadium, it's still only almost 6 young people, but it's pretty daunting, actually. It's sobering when we look at it compared to other countries, compared to where Nikhil is right now, which is in Germany, for example. So again, just sort of recognition of that, you know. Okay, so can you go back to Protecting the Children right there? Leave that up. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a discovery conversation. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting conversation because we have 2 volunteers who are going to really open up the conversation for us. And we're going to talk about gender and sexuality and trans issues and LGBT issues, queer issues, and non-binary issues. And what we're going to do, we're just going to walk into what this is. And I did this thing, Protecting the Children, because I was thinking about if I had kids. So there are a lot of adults, especially in red states, but lots of adults, people who are saying, like, hey, I don't want my children to go to school and be schooled on and get lessons on their sexuality, especially at a really young age. And I don't want my children going to schools and getting inundated with other people's thoughts about race and culture. And I was thinking about that for myself, and I said, if I had kids, who would I want teaching about sex, sexuality, and race? And I was thinking, I'd want me. Like if my kids went off to schools and I listen, I have an idea of what some of the lessons are and some of the stuff that's being taught and what other people are thinking, what people are thinking about race, the common narrative about race in the United States, and that's happening in schools, and that if you grew up in the United States, it's the narrative that you received and are inundated by, and you memorize about how you have to think about white people and black people and brown people and minorities and whatever it is. And I mostly disagree with that narrative. And I wouldn't want my kid to be pressured into swallowing that narrative from like kindergarten on. And when I think about sexuality and all of the issues, the complex issues related to sexuality, I wouldn't want my kid to be having conversations in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, primary school about these issues with people who I'm sure if I were sitting and listening to them would have good intentions, but I'm sure I would disagree with them, the way they talk about it, and the way people are force-fed to have to accept the vision that is kind of like this dominant vision, like trans issues, and how easy it is, how you just have to be supportive of trans issues, and anything that even questions trans in the dominant narrative becomes transphobic. And I think of all the ways in which I am identified or would be identified as transphobic, as heterosexist, as racist, like all these things, because I don't buy the party line. I don't buy the standard perspective. And so when I think about protecting the kids, and I think about all these parents out there that are saying, listen, we don't want our kids learning this stuff in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade. We don't want them like having to choose their pronouns when they're 7 years old. Yeah, why are kids choosing their pronouns at 7 years old? Like, what the man? What is this, right? And so the idea is like, it's like it's just like a fast moving, like river of ideas, like a flood of ideas, and you just can't get out of it. And everybody just goes along, and everyone's afraid to stand up unless you're in a red state. But if you're in a blue state or a blue school, like Penn State mostly is, everyone's afraid to stand up and say, wait a minute, I got a real problem here, especially if you're white or if you're straight, of which I am both, or a man, of which I am all three. But I'm comfortable saying, like, no, I don't buy that, because I can turn the issues around in a lot of different directions, but many other people are not. So protecting the kids, I get why so many people are standing up to all of these conversations that we're having about like critical race theory and gender teachings and getting kids to practice their pronouns when they're in grade school and stuff. Like, I'm just not sure that that's the business. A lot of that stuff is the business of schools. Books by Rosa Parks or whatever it is, that's a different story. But like, whatever. I'm just not sure that that's the issue. So what I want to say is, we're going to have a conversation about this today. And I'm going to walk through what the issues are. And we are going to walk through what the issues are. And we're going to walk through at what I think is going to be a really very thoughtful and honest and open way, where we're just going to dig into what we're actually talking about. And none of the rhetoric, none of how are we supposed to say it, how are we supposed to think about it. I'm going to walk you through the way I see these issues. And I don't buy the rhetoric, but I'm going to give you the sociology of it so we can understand what it is that we're really talking about, okay? And I'm going to do this in a way that people in the red states or wherever they are, who are really opposed to this kind of conversation, I'm going to really speak to them and not be like this kind of radical professor, which I'm seen to be since, what happened at the end of last semester, if you remember the story I told about gay porn. But the truth is, I'm going to give what I think is a very, very reasonable, thoughtful, we're going to make sure we steer into what I think is a very reasonable, thoughtful conversation. Okay? Cool? So, well, wait, actually, why don't you stay seated for a second? Could you go to the slide that we don't have? Next one. Okay, here, let me, before you are up here, because it'll be awkward if you're just sitting here and okay, so look. There are 3 dimensions that we are going to talk about, and there are 3 primary dimensions. The first is gender. And gender is largely sociological and to a degree psychological. Gender is, you kind of have the masculine, you have the feminine, you have everything in between, but you have the masculine, you have the feminine. We're going to just make this binary for a second, okay? And then you decide, we as societies, as cultures, decide what represents the masculine, what represents it, right? The way people talk, the way they style their hair, the way they use or don't use makeup, the clothing they wear, all of these things, right? The jobs people have, etc. We, sociologically speaking, we make agreements about what is masculine gender and what is feminine gender, okay? And then all the stuff in between where it gets really complicated. So gender is the first one. This is largely how we present ourselves to the world, how we think about ourselves in just these ways. Because, why? Because our bodies are different. And so sociologically speaking, we have to somehow manage the fact that our bodies are different. Okay, so the second piece is sexual orientation. And we have this thing in society, it's sex. Sex is part of life, it's how we all got here, and we're all managing it, especially folks of your age. When you get to my age, you manage it, but in a slightly different way. But you all are managing this in a really serious way. Sex is part of life. And so the question is whoa, okay, there's a biological component to sex, meaning who my body is naturally drawn to. And then there's a psychological component to sex. Who are my eyes drawn to? Who's my mind drawn to? Who's these pieces, right? So sex can be the choice piece, right? Oh, this would be really interesting. I think it'd be really nice to have sex with that person. Well, wait, what's that person? Is this a man or is it a woman? Is this someone who identifies gender as masculine? Is their gender masculine or is their gender feminine? Who is this? And so we talk about sexual orientation. I have an orientation toward people like this, who are masculine, or toward men, or I have an orientation toward the feminine and women, who have bodies that we identify as women's bodies, okay? And understand, there are bodies that have both of the sexual organ, the composition of man and woman, but we're going to set that aside for a second. And then we have sex. We have these are our bodies. What's our sex? I'm a man. I was born a man. I don't have any biological genetic characteristics of what we identify as women's characteristics, okay? So, and that's what most men would be. Or I could be a woman, but I'm born a man. I can do things with my body to move me more toward being a woman. But the point is, I haven't done that. And so I identify as a man. And this is about our biology and our genetics, and same with being a woman, okay? So we got the 3 things. We have gender, sexual orientation, and then we have sex. Okay, cool? And we're going to walk through what the complexities of these things. It's actually really simple, but it's complex. And because it's simple and complex, we get many people who just are very clear about this is the word you should use, and this is how you should see it. And I'm no, there are no shoulds in any of this. Leave the shoulds on the other side of the door. What we should do, except the only should be, is just exploration and conversation. So that we understand there's 1,000 ways that you can talk about this stuff. This is why we have, like the letter brigade, right? Like LGBTQAT, da, 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 da. It's like it's the entire, eventually we're going to get to the entire alphabet because people just keep coming up with new labels. So we're not going to get into what all those are, but we are going to stay with these 3 dimensions, okay? Okay, now we're ready, man. You can just sit on the table, however you want. You're going to be up here the whole time, so why don't you introduce yourselves?
All right, I'll go first. My name's Alex. I'm a senior and I'm studying computer engineering. And I guess for the purposes of this class, I'm gay, so that's important too.
Hi, my name is Corey. I am a freshman and studying in animal science, and again, for this class, I am genderqueer and pansexual.
And hold the mic close when you talk. Okay, so but 2 things jump out for the 2 of you, right? You're gay, but what you said in your volunteer form, what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so we talked about it, but I can go into that a little bit more. I've seen myself...
You don't have to go into the whole thing right now, but just say quickly.
I'm like straight curious, if that makes sense. If you can try to make sense of that, that's what I would say. So I'm not like completely gay. I just think about it, but
straight curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we I'm just going to have a conversation with Alex for a hot minute. So, okay, so listen. First off, when did you decide or discover or say to yourself, I'm gay?
I think it was like around when I was 12-ish, so like middle school. And this was like probably when I first started getting on the internet like on my own. That's about the time frame that I could think about it, because I know, and I have very clear memories of like taking a ton of tests, like quizzes online. Like I was the expert of taking the Are You Gay quiz, which like, if you're gay, you probably know what I'm talking about, because like you'll Google search it every month probably, and you'll see all the purple links, and you're like, I've already done these. But there's no one to like help you along the way, at least when I was growing up, to tell you like, oh, these things that you're feeling actually mean something, and like I can help you make sense. Like no one does that. No one's there to be like, oh, okay, so like you should know about this thing that could be applicable to you as you are an identity. Okay,
so go back to what I was saying earlier about schools. Did your teachers ever talk about it?
No.
Would you have wanted them to? Like,
yes.
What year? So maybe you disagree with some of what I'm saying. What year would you have wished that somebody had said like, hey, and what would you have wanted them to say?
Me personally, I would say 5th or 6th grade, which is when we started having conversations about like sexual education in class.
Okay.
And I think that's reasonable too. I think like, at least again for me personally, I felt at around 5th or 6th grade I was at an age where I could like start to make sense of these sorts of things and sex and like where I would fall into that. But instead we were just given like, we'd have like the weird day where like you have to talk about this stuff, and like you would read from like a little book, and I mean it's important stuff to learn, but not a single part of that applied to me. It was so much about like birth control, and it's all important stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't ever touch.
Did your parents talk about it?
Not really. I will say my parents are pretty like open. They mostly didn't want to like push me around, because like they wanted me to just kind of be who I was, and they didn't even want to be like, oh, maybe you should think about this. Like they didn't tell me.
They didn't even say like, hey, maybe you should think about a girlfriend or a boyfriend or anything like that, or?
No, not my parents. My grandparents did though.
Yeah.
Still probably will.
Yeah. So if your grandparents are watching, are they going to be not surprised? Okay.
I don't know. I don't really care.
So listen. So I just want to go back. What would you have wanted to hear, and from who? Right? Like really, this is part of the question of what the argument is. Like, what would you have wanted to hear, and from whom? At the age of 12 or whatever it is. And what could you have heard that would have said like, okay, I'm okay?
I don't really know. I think we like, it didn't come up too much in like our like science class and math class, which
Okay.
is most of our lecturing.
Yeah.
But every time we did talk about sexual education, which is when these topics were like actually brought up
Yeah.
to us,
Yeah.
I wish that was part of the conversation because it is very important, especially
Okay.
for the health of
Okay,
gay
so
people.
if I were your teacher, here's what I would have said. I would have said, hey, class, so here's how it works, right? You know, when you first start out, when you're first coming of age and you first start feeling those arousal feelings, whatever they are, however you feel them, and different people have them at different ages, right? So a lot of people have them at a really young age, like 5 or 6, and all sorts of stuff is happening. And other people maybe 12, 13, 14, who knows, right? But you're feeling certain things. You're looking at people. You're getting responses back from your body, the whole 9 yards. And you're starting, and sometimes, for some people, this is the sexual orientation piece, right? Some people, it's just really easy for them, the natural thing. They're not even thinking about it. Those arousal feelings come up for some men, right? Like me, they came up for me when I looked at other girls, or I looked at like a Playboy magazine or something, and there were women, and I was like, whoa, and I felt that. But for you, I'm assuming the first arousal feelings you had were not toward boys.
Correct. Yeah, and I think the most struggle, or like the biggest struggle with that was like, it kind of confused me because I was like, I never really learned about like what being gay is. Like no one like teaches you, and I didn't really have enough like experiences around it to be like, oh, that is a thing. So I had like crushes on girls in school.
Yep.
I would like develop little crushes, and that confused me for the longest time because I didn't really understand why.
What was a crush? What do you mean a crush?
Oh, like, and again, this is like middle school, like maybe into high school.
So you weren't like feeling anything
I wasn't.
in your body.
Yeah. It wasn't more like a sexual thing. It was
got
more
you.
like I guess romantic attraction.
Okay, I got you. Okay, cool. All right. And then what happens is for some people, and it's a small number of people, it's really, if we just leave, we don't know what the actual number is, right? Because we don't have very few societies where it's just completely okay to be straight, gay, or bi, or whatever you want to be in between. So if we knew that, if we had those societies, then we could have a really interesting measure of what percentage of the population is actually gay. So for example, people my age, it's a smaller percentage of people my age who are gay than people your age. Because you've grown up in a world where it's just easier to be that. So more people then are going to follow their natural inclination. Meaning that, so like Alex here, when he starts coming of age, I'm looking at girls at this age and I feel that kind of little tingling in my body. And he's looking at boys and he's feeling the same tingling. And you're not calling that on yourself, right? You're not going like, oh, I want to feel that with boys. It just is. And so that's what goes on. And that's the choice in nature piece. It's like your nature was like, yeah, this is where the tingling starts. And mine was, yeah, well, it starts for me somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's basically it, right? So if I would have said that to you. If I were teaching like 6th grade, I would have just said that. And then parents would have complained and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, probably.
But I just would have been it was very simple. It's like, whatever. That's what it is, y'all. That's how it is across the entire planet.
Yeah, and I want to actually add also, it's kind of interesting that people would even make claims about what's being taught in schools to our kids about like gender and sexuality. Because like my entire experience in school revolved around being taught to be straight. Like this is how babies are made. This is how you have safe sex with a woman. And then women, this is how you have safe sex with men.
Yeah.
And like that's how it is. And that's all I learned. And like, yeah, there were probably examples in like maybe a few books here and there, and if I had like a good English teacher, they would probably bring it up and be like, this is important. But I don't really remember that much, which I probably would.
You probably didn't have much. And what happens is parents have this idea that, oh, if we let you read a book about the 2 gay penguins raising the baby penguin, I forget what it's called, but it's like,
gay.
What is it?
It would turn me gay, right?
It would turn you gay. And it's like, it doesn't turn you gay. You can try. Some of you right now are identifying as queer or genderqueer or whatever. Some of you are. And because you've grown up now in this world where it's like kind of cool. You can't, like me, like the two of us, we can't be black. We can't play in the world of race. Like, we're both white dudes. And we can't be in this world where, well, but we want to be cool and we kind of want to be mixed or something. You can't do that. But holy shit. But I can be queer. And then I can fit in. I can have a label too. Like, I can be a minority in that way, and so I'll just be queer. And there are a lot of y'all of your generation who are going into this queer world, and like, I'm pansexual. It's like, all right, well, what's that mean? And then you describe it, and I'm like, well, it sounds like you're straight, but you're just open to something. It's like, and look, y'all have to. I'm just making a point here that there are far more of you today who are open to this, and in part because there's just like, this is the conversation we're having, which is like, let's be really open and let's be a little different. Let's not be just sort of the straight, narrow, up the path thing, if that makes sense. Okay, bro, before we get to you, one final thing. So you said you're straight curious, and this is why you're up here, right?
Yeah.
Because what's that mean?
I can try to explain it. It's more like, I think it's more common to be like bi-curious, or like, maybe you want to experiment with like the same sex.
Well, it means the same thing.
It
So
does
it's just
mean,
how
but
you
it's like,
say it.
It's like reverse. So if you just think about that like the opposite way, where I'm like, I probably would just tell people, like, if I don't have a lot of, like, if I'm not close to someone, I'll just say I'm gay. Like, that's how I would identify.
Uh-huh.
But like deep down, and like, if I actually do think about myself, I would say that that's not like 100% correct. Like, I wouldn't say I'm like completely gay. Just like most straight people probably aren't completely straight.
And most gay people aren't completely
yeah.
gay. So, but the idea is you're straight curious because you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gay, but I'm not going to rule out a relationship, either A, just having a sexual experience with a woman, or a relationship with a woman. I haven't ruled it out. I'm kind of curious about it, right? Okay, right?
Yeah, and like, I don't know. It's kind of like I thought about this at a younger age, being like 12, middle school-ish. By the time I was having like real relationships, I was only really seeking out guys, because I kind of had figured myself out mostly by then. So I wasn't like, oh, I should experiment with women just to see. Like, I never really did that. It'd probably be easier to think about it if you think about the other way.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, though.
Yeah, it's a similar thing, right? Like, people who are straight. I know so many people who are straight who are straight, right? They've never been with anyone of the same sex in any capacity. They haven't kissed anybody. They haven't kissed a boy, like men, they haven't kissed a boy. They haven't held hands. They haven't done anything. But who are really curious, and they continue to be curious. And most of them will go to their graves continuing to be curious. And so I'll just speak for a second about one friend of mine who, it's not just in his mind, right? It's not just, I'm really curious about being with a guy. He's like really has wanted to be with a guy. He just have an experience because he doesn't know. But he's not the kind of guy that just to go out and have a one-night stand, and just never really happened. And then he got married, and he has a kid, so maybe it will never happen because he's probably not that guy. But it's not just in his head. That tingling thing that I taught, like, it comes up just a little bit. Doesn't mean he's gay. Doesn't mean he's hiding it, because he's really completely open. But it just means like, yeah, I'm down here straight. This is the non-binary thing, right? But this is like you, straight curious. But like, I can step into these waters. I can be here. And it's not just in my mind. It's actually like, I feel a couple things, but I don't feel it strong enough that it just doesn't take me out of it. It's like last night I was laying in bed and I was really thirsty. But I wasn't so thirsty that I got up and went to the kitchen and got water. I'm just like, I'm thirsty, but I'm not going to go to the water. That's like him. I'm a little bit, I guess you could say thirsty, right? I don't know.
It's a good analogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not. It probably will never happen. Lots of people are like that. It's really hard to be right down here all the time. And we have loads of examples all over the world and all over social situations where people can easily just step off. It's like people who are gay, very clearly gay. They've never been with anybody of the opposite sex. But you get enough alcohol in them and something happens, they're with a friend and like, okay, well, something just happened. Whoa, what was that? What just happened? Okay, well, these things they happen. I have friends in prison who have been in prison a long time, and they get in prison and they're like, hey, I have feelings, and I'm with all these guys, but I have feelings, and I'm still straight, but like I'm a human being, man, and I need like the touch, you need that human touch, and so like, okay, that's fine. So people in these moments can step off what is clear, straight, or gay and step into somewhere else, right? Is it a choice? Is it a feeling? Is it a choice, but yet I'm going to because I need to, I'm going to convince myself that I can feel that tingling piece, or maybe it's just purely a choice. I don't know. Whatever. Okay? Cool? Dude. Cool. Corey. All right, man. So, okay. Okay, you're born. Let's walk through. Assigned female at birth, okay? And then what are you thinking now? Like, walk us through a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to explain, but as of right now...
Hold it really close, because you have a low voice.
It's a little difficult to explain, but as of right now, I am genderqueer, and what's considered transmasc, which pretty much means like going from more feminine to more masculine, but it doesn't necessarily I don't necessarily feel like either a man or a woman. I'm still just very much what I like to say, I'm just me. I'm just Corey.
Yep. Just Corey. Just you. Born a woman. And then so what happened? Like, when did you start to say, wait, how about in terms of gender? How do you identify in terms of gender? Same thing?
Yeah, my gender would be genderqueer, which is
genderqueer,
kind of an umbrella for non-binary. Like, it's
so
similar.
Exactly. So okay. So let's go. Like, here's one side of the spectrum. Hang on. This is going to get too hard. This is too much. This is going to be too much walking on my part. Okay. So let's do this. And again, we're only doing this just as a way to just kind of have this conversation. But so in terms of gender, you have masculine, you have the feminine. You're born with all in a girl's body, right? So naturally speaking, people. What happens with most people, y'all, right, is you're born with a girl's body, or you're born with a boy's body, and people just assume that you're a girl, and so you start dressing you like a girl before you have any say over it or whatever. And then at some point in time, you started to say, wait, hang on, gender-wise, I'm not sure I'm a girl. I'm not sure I just fit. How old were you when you started thinking in terms of gender?
I want to say gender's always sort of been like...
As long as you can remember.
Right, like it's always been sort of a strange construct for me. I didn't have, again, like the words to explain, like no one told me there was any sort of words or anything to explain it, so like I had no word for it. But for as long as I could remember, it's always been like apparent for me. Like I've always just been like, something's different, something's odd, something's wrong, like I just didn't know what to think of it, and I'd always kind of explored and been a little different.
Did you, well, okay, so the fact that you said, okay, odd and wrong, right? This is the problem, right? This is part of why people who are dealing with these issues in schools are saying it's really good to be able to give children, to give young kids an outlet to have a conversation about this stuff, so they don't say, I'm different. Not that I'm different. That's fine. Being different is fine. But wrong. Like there's something wrong with me. Because we see like the high depression rates, the high suicide rates, the high self-harm rates among people like the two of you, much higher, but especially like you. Okay, so when you say genderqueer, just for sake of this conversation, are you like hang on. We're gonna do a third chair here. Are you just like somewhere in here where you're just kind of floating back and forth in the middle,
Yes.
or are you more at the
So
female end?
I like to explain it as like yes, no, sometimes, and maybe. So like it's
Dude,
just
awesome.
very fluid.
Okay.
Like I am more masculine leaning, but gender-wise, like I'm masculine leaning socially, but gender-wise, I'm all over the place.
Okay. So let's go sex. Let's talk sex for a second. Born as a girl. So what are you thinking in terms of your sex? Like, what are you thinking these days, right? You're only 18. So, by the way, think about this. I'm 62, and I'm just starting to, I'm still confused about most things in life, including myself. And so the fact that I would ever look at someone who's like 7 or 8 or 9 or 12 or 18 and think that they know exactly what's going on with their mind and body, and that, okay, this is really clear, let's follow them, but what are you thinking at this point in terms of your biological body?
Biologically, I'm not sure if I would do any sort of medical transitioning. As of like the past maybe 2 years, I've been slowly like doing social transitioning, which is, name change, pronoun change, things like that. But when it comes to medically, that's like a whole new can of worms. Like that's very complicated. It's got a lot that you have to think about. There's a lot that goes into that, health, like socially, there's just everything. So it's very much up in the air, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. So you identify as they, but you're saying they, him, not they, she.
Yeah, so I use he, they, or they, he pronouns,
Okay.
which means you can use either they, them, or he, him.
Okay, so listen. So this is the thing. So listen, y'all, right? Everybody, this is why you can't, it's so incredibly difficult to pick one person out and think like we can understand everybody's experience, right? I wouldn't necessarily, okay, so you're born she, I'm just going to walk through to be really clear. You're born she, right? You're saying they is usually someone in the world of our bodies, right? And gender too, gender and sex, right? They all go together. Like it's somewhere here in the center, they, which is very cool, by the way. To they, like why do we got to be like feminine or masculine? Like what's the point? Most of you aren't. You do understand just how you're dressed right now with these jeans? Well, okay, they're kind of half a pair of jeans. You know what I mean? I just showed my age right there, by the way. What's with all these holes in your jeans? You pay a lot of money for that. Like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you people? All right. So, anyway, if you go back 60 years here at Penn State, girls, Penn State women didn't wear jeans. Boys wore jeans. You had to wear dresses. This is how this stuff works. Like you can't dress like that. So it's like things change. Everything changed. And so I think the they piece for me is like, well, let's just explore life. Like be they. They is kind of cool. So many of us we're just engaged. Look at me. I have all these earrings. I don't know. The earrings aren't necessarily I don't know what that really means, but like whatever, it's just like, come on, loosen up, people. Like it's all good. Like who cares, right? Anyway, okay, so, but you're saying they, he, or them, he, them, right? Him, he, they, whatever, him, they. Wait, it's all, okay. So you said, no, in terms of my pronouns, I'm actually going to leave here. You're not saying like he, she, them. You're saying, no, I'm going with he, they. So you're putting these two together, not those two. So you like have walked away from your biology.
For me, it was like definitely a journey. So at one point, I actually used it was she, her. Then I went to she, they. Then she, they, he. So at one point, they were all three of them were together.
Awesome.
Actually, and I guess as I sort of like felt like once I came to college and I was able to sort of explore myself more and kind of express like how I feel inside is when I made the change to he, they, or they, he, because I felt more comfortable that way. But I knew back at home, most people wouldn't address me that way. So I just kind of like had all three sort of as like, well, like I know people aren't gonna say what I want them to say, so I'll just like leave it there anyways.
Okay. So you say more comfortable, right? Can you say like, what do you mean by that?
So like,
'Cause, by the way, but I just want to say something. Dudes, it's like, life is so cool. You really need to hear this. Neither Alex nor Corey are demanding that anybody see things the way they see it, okay? Neither of them are saying that. Corey is not saying, Corey, but is that your birth name? All right, okay. So, because it's such an androgynous, it's such an awesome name. Corey is not saying, people around me and back home, I demand that they call me this and they use these pronouns. They're not saying that. It's like, just lighten up, man. It's so cool, right? Okay, so more comfortable. What do you?
Yeah, so like it's almost like, I don't know if you guys have heard this on the internet when people say like they get the ick from something. It's like when people, well, I've always had that with my name, so I changed my name first. But using any type of she, her, or like certain like feminine leaning pronouns, almost again, like it gave me the ick. Like it just felt like wrong. Like if someone were to call you she, like you would feel strange. Like you'd just be like, that's wrong. And I guess it sort of just felt like that for me. Like it's just kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, you're shaking your head.
Oh, yeah, I'm agreeing. I think that's a really good way to put it too, because it's like I understand that, like I know that, and I don't think most people do. It's like it would be the same as if like somebody were to call you something a different pronoun that
a different
you
name,
identify,
a
different
even.
name.
Yeah.
Like, and you would probably feel weird about that. It's just that's not what's happening, so it doesn't. No, people aren't getting that experience, so they don't understand that.
Yeah.
At least that's how I think about it.
Yeah. No, it's cool actually. So you're what I'm hearing you, because both of you strike me. I mean, both of you are just so reasonable and thoughtful and self-aware. And you're saying, yeah, the ick factor, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. And so like, okay. So to stay here. Okay, but surgery-wise, right? You're saying like, yeah, at this stage, I'm 18 years old. I look to the future and I'm not thinking, turn my body into, right? So female is women assigned, girl assigned, whatever, female assigned, body. So now the question becomes this: because you've walked into this world, what's on the table for Corey is to say, okay, I've already transitioned in terms of my gender. I don't know, we haven't talked about your sexual orientation yet, but I've already transitioned in terms of my gender. What's next is my body. What do I do with this body here? And what's on the table is that one part of transitioning is not just transitioning in terms of gender. Like me, I would start using she pronouns, her and she and so on, right? But it's like, well, what might I do with my body? So that in the question for Corey would be, do I do some kind of surgical alteration with my body that would move me from being woman down here to being closer to man down here? You're never going to be a man. Doesn't matter. Like you can never. They can never get here. Okay, because we don't have the surgical procedures to change Corey's entire anatomy to get her to be able to sit in this chair. Like there are all sorts of things we can do. Maybe we'll talk about it if we get there. But Corey will never be sitting in this chair. That's not possible. So the question is then, you're in this chair, and you're saying, all right, I've already transitioned into the gender a little bit, but now but I have the option, Corey, has the option of altering my body a little bit to be more in line with Alex's body or Sam's body, right? A man's body, okay? So like, am I interested in any of that? And at this stage in your life, you're going like, I don't really know. And you're really young, and that's a great answer for that. But what could you, so that people know, like, what would be the, like, do you, what could you do? I mean, I know, look, hey, can I just say this? I had my first student who I kind of walked through the transition process, first sociologically and then biologically, when I was like 26. And since that time, I've had many, many experiences with many people. So like I could talk very clearly about all the medical procedures and so on, but what would you?
I think surgery-wise, I'm going to say probably not, but there's things that you could do. Again, surgery-wise would be things such as top surgery, which would be the removing of breast tissue. There's also different bottom surgeries. There's I want to say 2 different ones that I can think of. That sort of just make you have more male genitalia.
Or like a genitalia that looks more male.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm personally not thinking about things like those. I think the one major thing up in the air would be testosterone, which is a hormone replacement. I could get testosterone either injections or testosterone gel of different milligrams, I guess. I don't know how to, but pretty much it would do things like give me more facial hair or change my body fat distribution, things along those lines, to outwards appearance, like what you would see, still be more masculine leaning without having to go through the surgeries.
So a lot of people who are in this world that you're in will wear really tight, what do you call it? There's a name for it.
I have a binder on, yes.
A binder, right? So do you wear a binder?
Yes, I currently have one on. It kind of helps you flatten your chest, in clothing.
So are you just, everyone assumes okay, this guy right here, Alex, he's gay, so he knows all about this stuff. Are you?
Yes, I do. I do know everything
You
you're
happen
talking
to.
about. Yeah, I do.
You're more likely to, right? It's
Probably, I would say yes, because I at the same time that I was trying to figure myself out, I do think I kind of not congregated, but I drew myself towards people that I knew would understand me better.
Yep.
I wasn't going to hang out with, and I'm not saying that I don't do this, but generally my closer friends might lean more towards being somebody who's not binary.
Clear, super straight.
Yeah.
Or super gay.
Or euphoria. Dysphoria is something is wrong. Again, that feeling something's off, something's odd. Where euphoria is you feel good about yourself.
Got you.
So for me personally, I feel sometimes really odd or almost exposed without my binder. And then wearing it makes me feel, again, it's compression, sure. So it's hugging me, but I feel lighter myself. I feel better.
Mm-hmm. And hugging you, and the idea is, and what you're saying is, hey, but I'm not ready to think about top surgery, but wearing a binder is kind of low. It's low hanging fruit. It's pretty easy, right? Especially if you don't have really large breasts, and then you're then it's a lot easier because it can be really painful if you have huge breasts. So, for example, we have a friend, Lori and I tell this story sometimes, but who was transitioning, and we were together, and it was and had just really started, was clearly going to transition. I mean, he's just not 98% there. I mean, he was there. And we were together, and the three of us, and we were drinking beer, and it was really hot, and I took my shirt off because we were where we were. It was here in State College. It was so hot in our apartment. It was like 85 degrees. And Lori said to this friend, you can take your shirt off, because he was transitioning. He was a she at the time, but transitioning, and we were just in the process of moving from male pronouns to female pronouns, but we weren't. But Lori and I would still make mistakes because because she was still a she to us. We knew her for like 4 years, and this was just in that moment, just in those couple months where it was like, okay, she was. Anyway, Lori said, "You're a guy. You're transitioning to be a guy. You can take your shirt off." And so he did, and took his binder off. I was like, oh, damn, that must be painful, because he had really large breasts. And it was just like, dude, you gotta. Then it was clear, and it was so clear that I'm gonna just demonstrate this, right? I'm gonna need this. So we're drinking beer, and we're sitting, we're just sitting back, and he's this dude. He's more of a dude. When he was a she, he was more of a dude than I was, right? Just like, I don't know, man. And he's just sitting there drinking beer, takes his shirt off, and he's just sitting there with his beer bottle like this, just like taking sips of beer, with breasts, really large breasts. And Lori and I were both like, dude, you got to get those taken off, man, because you are a guy. There's zero question, zero. You are a guy. Like, oh my, you're a guy. Don't even just go, right? And it was just a couple months later that he had top surgery, because he was going to have it anyway, but it's just like really, it was just so clear, you know what I mean? And the binder thing, it just stopped. It just wasn't, it was fine. He needed it, but it was so clear. Anyway, that's an interesting story. Okay, so are you, when I say that no matter what happens, and so this is the same with Alex, if Alex decided to transition, but then when I say that, yeah, but you'll never be in this chair because you never have my body, right? Are you cool with that?
I feel like I'm cool with it. It's just like sometimes it can be upsetting. Like if I'm feeling like really masculine, like I wish I could just almost teleport into that body, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like if someone gave me the choice of just like, why don't you choose your avatar? I'd be like, yeah, I want that one. So I feel like the thing that's upsetting is not you saying that, like I understand that. It's just more that I know that, I guess.
I got you. Okay, so listen, let me say the transphobia stuff, like, you know about TERFs and all this?
Yes.
Some people would call me a TERF.
Really?
Just by saying that Corey can't ever be in this chair.
I don't think they understand that you have way more experience with people from different backgrounds.
Totally.
I know what you mean. Like, I know. Like,
Yeah.
you won't be able to change someone's DNA, at least with the technology we
Yeah.
have. You
Yep.
actually cannot do that. And, like, I think the hard part is, like, it's really hard to accept that if you are somebody like Corey. Like, I don't know how. Like, I had enough trouble accepting myself. I mean, it took years. It took years. And, like, I'm only this candid about it because I've done that in my past. Because I was able to be open with myself when I was, like, middle school, high school. And I'm very lucky that I had friends and family that were, like, open to this kind of stuff. I don't know where I'm going with this, but...
No. Okay, so the idea, though, is that one of the arguments, this is what happens when people... When a movement starts, so there's this like trans movement that kicks in gear, and then everybody jumps on board, and then suddenly what you see are all these people who say, hey, if Corey says, I'm a boy, I'm a man, then they are a man. And that means that if Corey says, I'm a man, then she can sit in this chair and she's as much of a man as me or Alex. And then you got other folks who are saying, nah, which is what I just said. No. I mean, yes, you can say that. Like Corey can say, but I'm a man, and this is what it is. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And everything that goes along with that. But what a lot of folks are saying is, but sex is real. Okay? It's not just a sociological construct. So that Corey says, but I'm a boy, and therefore she's a boy. And she should have all the rights and privileges of anybody who's a boy or a man. It's like, you can make that argument, but you're not here. They are here. Right? And so the people who are making the argument, struggling with this, very often are women who are saying, hang on, man. But you can't just make that decision one day, and then all of a sudden it all changes. So I said the word turf, and so a lot of people get criticized because they're just unwilling to allow people who are transitioning to say, yes, I'm in this chair equal, like Corey would be equal to me or Alex. We're all men up here. We're the same. And there are a lot of folks going like, nah, man, you don't have to go that far. There's no reason you have to go that far. Because sex is real. There are these ways of our bodies, and they're real. But what I heard you say, though, is, but when I'm feeling particularly masculine, I wish I could just make a wand over me and just be the boy. It just would be interesting. Like if your whole body was the body of a boy and everything, it's just like, yep, it just feels like you're the spirit that is you. Feels like, I would come into a different kind of alignment. Awesome. You don't have any of that. You're a boy.
Yeah, I mean, I've at least I won't say that I'm just like, I'm just a guy. Like, I've never thought about, I've thought about it.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should at least, be open with yourself to think about things like that. But, I've done that, and I'm just, I'm a guy. And I'm not, trying to, dunk on you. But I think it's okay to at least think about it. But yeah, I don't question my gender too much because I feel comfortable.
Yeah, same here. Hey, by the way, but you haven't said anything about your sexual orientation.
Yeah, so I am
everyone, sexual orientation, right? So you know where Corey's going right now. It's like, okay.
So I do identify as pansexual. I knew my...
Wait, hang on. Define that for us.
Yeah. The way I understand pansexuality is it's just openness with your sexuality in terms of gender, you don't care. Yeah. It doesn't really apply to the way you feel feelings for people. That's how I understand pansexuality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's beyond bisexual because it's like, hey, whatever, it doesn't matter. Someone who's trans, someone who's this, someone who's that. It's just really completely irrelevant. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
So very gender blind. I absolutely do not see gender when it comes my body, my mind, my heart just doesn't think about it, I guess. I knew about my sexuality before I knew about my gender, more the terms for it. I've always felt the issues with gender, but the same thing happened. So we have our little crushes again when you're in elementary school, you little twirling your hair, kicking your feet. And my first crush, very young, was on another girl. And again, I didn't have a word for it, so I assumed something was wrong, something was broken, something, I'm wrong, I gotta try to fix it. Which is where, when people say, when people choose these things, it's I tried to choose, but, I could not. It's my body, my mind, my heart made up its mind. It knew what, it had it set. And this continued. Again, you hit puberty around between 9, 12, whenever. And it continued that way. And I realized, I just would have a crush on anyone of any gender. It's not something my mind was thinking about when it came to, either romance or sexuality. I still didn't have the word for it, and I did try to be straight because I assumed something was wrong. So like someone asked me and I was like, oh yeah, I like that guy over there for sure. And then like they tried to walk up to me and I was like, dude, please don't touch me. But yeah, so like I did try, but it doesn't work out that way. So then once I found the word for pansexual, I was like, yeah, like very much that's
It
me.
usually does. It never works out to try to convince ourselves otherwise. Bro, let me ask a question to you. So do you get a lot of pushback from the gay community, the gay male, or women, the queer, the gay community, right? Gay or lesbian community.
Yeah. I know.
Like you said, but I'm straight, curious.
Yeah.
Like that's actually, people don't realize that's a little bit risky because you got to choose size too, man.
Yes, I actually, I'm not going to like say names or anything, but I've had gay friends who are like disgusted by the idea of like being with a woman and like having sex with a woman. Like they are disgusted by it. Similarly to like what some straight guys might feel if they were to think about having sex with another guy. And I never really felt too much like that. Like maybe I thought it was like kind of joking around. But like that is like a real thing that exists. And it's probably common.
And then you get pushed, right? Because it's really hard to be
Yeah.
bisexual. Those of you who identify as bisexual, you know, like people are saying, like pick a side. It's
Yeah.
like people who are mixed, like you're mixed. So it's like, well, what are you? You got to choose. It's like, why do I have to choose? Like, come on, man, just let me be in this space. Like, it doesn't really matter. So, Anything to add? Does anybody have a question like you really got to ask that we didn't ask that you really feel like you need to ask? Do you have a question, bro?
I was just going to say I love questions.
Does anyone want to ask a question? Anyone have one? Wait, here, really fast. Because we're getting ready to take the exam or the quiz. Yep.
Okay. So my question is, why would you how do I phrase this? Okay. So like, if you say you're gay but you're straight curious, why wouldn't you just say you're bisexual?
That's a really good question.
That's
I think
a
it's
great
easier.
question.
Yeah, no, that's a really like a great question. I've actually I told people I was bisexual at first. That's more of like a lessening the blow, and I think that's a very common thing. I think most gay people will know what I'm talking about. But I did that for a bit, and then it was just easy for me to be like, I'll just seek out, like, I'm attracted to guys. This like makes sense for me. And it also was partially like that's kind of how society like works too.
Yeah.
Like bisexuality is not super. I mean, it's actually very common, but it's not like understood well by most people. And I don't think I understood it well back then either. I probably would say like if you said I was bisexual, I'd say yeah. I agree.
But you've never been with a woman.
But I've never been with a woman,
So then it becomes kind of hard for
that's
him to
probably
say.
why.
Yeah, it becomes hard to say like.
Yes.
Like I would, like for example, I was telling Alex this earlier, if my wife dies before me and I ever partner with anyone, it'll definitely be with a guy. But like, I'm not going to say right now that I'm bisexual because I haven't been with a guy. Well, not really been with a guy. So like, so I can't say that, like I'm bisexual. And I'm not gay curious even. I just know that I wouldn't be with a woman.
And that I actually kind of feel that too, and that's why I think it's important too. Like me being the other way, like it affects me as well. Like if I were to get married to a guy, but like I've never had like a chance when I was younger. I never acted on it. So
Yeah.
I would never like get that chance if I was married. So
Hey, listen, I'm going to speak into green here for a second, then we're going to do the quiz. I feel like I really, really tried to lead, the three of us tried to have a conversation that feels like open and sincere. Like we're really trying to look at what these issues are to better understand them. So I hope we accomplished that and we didn't like go off the rails at all. I don't think we did. I think it was really, the two of you were both awesome. Hey, can we have a hand for them and then we'll... All right.